Hello and welcome to our second episode regarding the World Handicapping System. Now the purpose of today's episode is to explain a common term that you're going to hear quite a lot of this year and beyond. It's called Handicap Index. I'm going to explain what it is, how it's calculated, and what this means to you out on the golf course. So a handicap index is the equivalent of what you may have previously called your handicap. And it's a way of measuring a player's ability. However, the handicap index is designed to be portable from course to course, regardless of what country in the world you're playing in, and will allow players to compete fairly, thus being more inclusive. Now, there is a big difference in the way in which your handicap index is calculated compared to the previous handicapping system. So let me explain. So the old system would change your handicap based upon how well or poorly you played in competitive play. If you played poorly, your handicap would adjust and go up. If you played well, and depending on how many shots you played well by, it would come down. However, the new system works on an averaging basis. It takes into account the last 20 rounds of golf that you've played. And of those 20 rounds, it identifies the best or the lowest 8 rounds of golf that you've had, and it works out an average from those 8 rounds. So in order to make this video relevant, I'm going to provide 3 examples as to how your handicap index could be calculated. Now we appreciate we've got a wide demographic of membership here at the club. Some of you have already got your handicap index, some of you haven't. Some of you really like to engage in our competition schedule, many of you don't. And we also understand that many of you have the opportunity to play 2, 3, 4 times a week, whereas there's many of our membership that don't have that availability to be able to do so. Irrespective of any of this, let me explain and highlight how your handicap index could be calculated. So my first example is going to be player A. And in this instance, we're going to call player A an established golfer. What I mean by this is someone who has recorded 20 competitive rounds on their profile over the last 3 years. This could have been made up of competitions, general play rounds, over the time here at the club. Now, the averaging process works exactly as I have explained it. The last 20 rounds of that player have been taken into account, the best 8 rounds have been averaged, and that leaves that player with a handicap index. Now, one thing to note with this particular player is that if a new score is submitted, let's say today, what was their 20th round on their record then becomes their 21st round, and that means that score falls off the list of being part of their averaging process, irrespective of how good that round was. Okay, so my next example is player B. Player B is currently somebody that doesn't have a handicap index, has never had a handicap before, or is maybe a new member that hasn't had a handicap and has just joined us here at the club. Now what player B needs to do is they need to go out on the golf course and record 54 holes of competitive play. What I mean by that is play under competition rules, even though there's not necessarily a competition, have someone else sign and confirm the score that they've shot. And this can be played over any combination you wish. This could be 6 loops of 9 holes, it could be 2 loops of 18 and 2 loops of 9, or it could be 3 rounds of 18 holes. Simply play, get someone to sign it, and then submit them into us, and we will create a handicap index for you. Now my final example is player C. Player C is someone that has a handicap index here at the club. They have played in a few competitions in the past, and they've even submitted a couple of general play rounds over the previous 3 years. But they do not have 20 rounds recorded on their profile. Now we appreciate many of you will be like player C, and there's nothing to worry about. The new handicapping system works on the following table until you have fully developed and built a record of 20 cards. You can see, for example, if you've only submitted 4 cards in the last 3 years, it will take your single lowest round and minus another 1. That's what your handicap index will be. However, the most important thing to get across that is in your interest and is your advantage to have a minimum of 20 rounds in the system. This will best reflect your ability and playing standard. So in summary, your handicap index is what you may have previously called your handicap. The handicap index is worked out based upon an average of your last 20 rounds. And it is absolutely in your interest to post as many scores to best reflect your playing ability or standard. However, one benefit is an introduction of what we call general play rounds. This allows you to build up your record so that we can get a handicap index that reflects your ability. But I'll come onto this in more detail in a future video. However, as I've explained in the first episode, the most important thing is still go and play golf the same way you've always played it, input the scores the same way you've always done. The system will work it all out for you. In the meantime, we hope to see you guys soon. Take care.